Hey, everyone. It's Key here in a brief departure from our usual format. Just wanted to peel back the curtain a little bit on today's episode and say that a lot has changed relevant to the subject matter in the 2 weeks or so since we recorded the initial batch of audio. Today's episode being, of course, about Law Keep Away and Magical Resistance. We go down the rabbit hole, if you will, about a variety of Supreme Court rulings and laws in the United States as they are relevant to the steady erosion of all of our rights and the progressive minimization of our agency, two things which we hate here at the Frightful House You May Hear podcast. Um, yeah, we make no secret of our pretty far left politics and the fact that we do a lot of magic in support of associated causes and our own efforts in the increasingly politicized spheres of everyday life. So I just wanted to hop in and say if you note some glaring omissions, such as the recent Snyder v. US legalizing bribery, Department of State versus Munez finding that there is no fundamental liberty interest in a non citizen spouse being admitted to the country, essentially creating a voluntary deportation regime for those with family who are outside of the US. We also have the Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo overturning Chevron, making it harder for agencies such as financial and environmental regulators to enact and enforce policy. We also have a couple more infamous causes, if you will. The city of Grant Pass versus Johnson fucking over pretty much the entire unhoused population of the US by outlawing public camping as it's technically and narrowly ruled, but in effect, this just says we can destroy your encampments and push you out of town and don't have to provide anywhere for you to go. Obviously, very shitty for a huge swath of the population who is facing an already incredibly difficult and tenuous living situation. And of course, there is political news that has dominated all of the media in the global north the past week or so, which is Trump v. United States, creating massive carve outs for the president to act with impunity and to make any criminal prosecution of a president, current or former, all but impossible due to criteria for admissibility of evidence connected to official acts. There's also the twin disasters of the Republican and Democratic parties' responses, respectively, to the Trump Biden debate. We all know how that one went, so I will spare the gory details of a collapsing Biden administration. Just wanted to jump in and highlight all of that today, just to say that all of the information in this episode, all of the techniques and spells provided become triply important. Yeah, It's it has not been an easy few weeks, but keep doing what we can, right? So hope you enjoy the episode and hope you put everything inside to good use. So my ultimate fitness goal, right, is when I'm at some protest and I'm like pounding it up the road, being chased by cops, right? They're like looking around, calling for backup, and they go into their mic and they go, "The suspect is tall with a muscular build." That's when I've made it.
That's why you quit the cardio rowing regimen that you were on to be all lean and mean, and now you're trying to get big.
Yeah. I'm
True.
like,
Get the pump.
I'm like, how much mercury can I take in by eating cans of tuna?
You're, listen, you are the Mercury man. It's true.
hmm Yeah, I'm like,
Mer
my exposure's already probably higher than the average person. What's a little bit more?
It's all the protein.
Hmm.
Well, I do love that meme that you keep sending me, which is the you don't need to be a wizard to cast fireball, and it's just the yassified Molotov cocktail.
Listen, man, the Nernroot glow of the brick next to the window
It
becomes
calls to you.
uh
It's like, yo, why is there this glow around these bricks? Like, am I supposed to throw them or something through this cop car?
yeah, legit.
It's whispering
It's
to you like the Green Goblin mask to our man Willem Dafoe.
mhm. It's the Nernroot glow that tells me that they were planted by the Washington D.C. Police Department before a peaceful protest to increase chances it becomes violent.
Facts, facts. I've been tracking a lot of protests lately in my city, and it's always interesting to see, like on Twitter, the videos of the very obvious cops.
Mhm.
It's like world's worst, like plainclothes disguise possible. Like you can see the wire going up, you can see like the barely like hidden like vest underneath the shirt, the like phone that's recording peeking out with the camera out of the breast pocket, the shoes that are like obviously a little too good like for dealing with like nails or broken glass. So they're more like, yeah, it's just like, come on, man.
Mhm. When you go into a place and you're like, "Hey, officer, excuse me," and they look up.
I know, and they're plainclothes, but they still look up. It's so true. Well, this is
Um,
an episode that you've been waiting a long time to do.
yeah, um, something that I'm very passionate about, um, and that I have written on before, and actually, we both have written on before.
Hmm.
Um, and the more information, the more resources about it we can get out into the world, and the more we can maximize people's agency in the face of a increasingly tyrannical state interested in eroding your civil rights and liberties, the better, right?
Hmm. Absolutely.
So this is the ACAP episode.
Fight the good fight, my friend. Be not alarmed at the frightful howls which you may hear. It's Finga and a burnt husk of the Minneapolis Police Department's third precinct key. Ah,
Yeah.
woof.
Right.
There
It's
were there were
a
other ones. There were other ones on our mind, but that one you said one.
mhm. It's a strong start for what I hope is a fiery episode that burns as bright as that police department. you know, during and immediately following the murder of George Floyd.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, having been in Minneapolis at the time and experienced some of that first and second hand, and walked by the burnt out buildings in the following days. It's
And got the
quite the
dirt.
sight. Oh
And
yeah.
got and got the dirt. Yeah. Well, you were in the protests, so
Mhm.
actually we had an impromptu voice call in the Patreon Discord server. It was just Key and I. We were like, "Hey, like, let's just like go in there and see what's going on." And you streamed Elden Ring, and then people hopped on, and you promptly stopped streaming Elden Ring. It hit whatever vape pen you were hitting. What was that even like?
Oh, some absolute nonsense, dude. I don't even know.
All
From
right.
some of the finest gelato 32 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And told everyone about your some of your protest experience, which was freaking awesome. Because one, like you could really feel the passion that you have for equitable community justice. And
Mhm.
also, I think it was really beautiful to hear you talk about the importance of what it means to protect vulnerable people and communities and minorities who suffer way worse than we do in dealing with corrupt police officers, and how to ensure that like it's their voices that are speaking and are being platformed. Whereas,
Mhm.
folks who can and who are physically fit and are able to do what you're doing are, obviously in the front lines.
Yeah, yeah. Something that I heard from a speaker at one of the protests up here at the time was like, if you are in a position where even if you are a member, I suppose, of a marginalized community existing in that space, but you can still utilize the privileges and protections from discrimination you may face in other ways, and putting that to use in service of a goal, right? Where it's like, what does it mean for the a white dude to be like, in front of a crowd of speakers, right? Where it's like, okay, if someone's going to get arrested here, who's probably not going to get hurt, who's probably going to face lesser charges, who's probably just going to get a slap on the wrist and be like, okay, get the fuck out of here. Here's like a $50 ticket for unlawful assembly or some nonsense, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
might as well, and all the better if you have the magic on your side, right?
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you putting this together because I think it's not only an important episode, but we don't hide at all that we're leftists and
Mhm.
that and our opinions about what it means to have to fight and resist a corrupt state and the enforcers of the corrupt state being the police. But we've not really like gone into the tech and by any means, and I think you putting this together is extremely special. So I'm excited to be here with you. And Salt was spamming us with in our group chat with all the love and excitement for this episode, and how proud he is of you when he was looking at the script which you previewed in the Patreon Discord server. And folks were pretty excited for it because you're the hyperlinks for the sections of the research you were doing very funny. Like to give a preview, it's like the first section is why we hate the fuck government, and then it goes fuck the state, fuck the cops, and fuck the judiciary. So it's gonna be spicy. I'm really excited for it. I'm excited for the tech that you're gonna share, all the people and resources you're gonna plug, and I'm really proud of you putting this together. So I know Salt would have loved to make it for this one as well. Job stuff being what it is, a
Mhm.
hard scheduling conflict, especially with us being on the road. So we have to record this well in advance. But I'm really excited, and thank you so much.
And thank you for coming along for the ride. This is a labor of love and a very special thing to me. So I'm always happy to do it.
hmm Remember to check us out at twitter.com/Frightful Howls and patreon.com/The Frightful Howls. We have a bonus episode every month curated by and for our patrons in the form of a Q&A. We got a Discord server where we preview stuff like this and workshop things and chat with you all and post plenty of fire memes if you want to come hang out with us. We also have Salt's Fantastic Monthly Almanac, a live occult book club every month where we discuss a text or movie of your choosing, show notes for every episode, and much more. Also, remember to give us a like, rating, and review on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you may be listening to us. It helps us fight the damage of the algorithm. It really means a lot. Every 5-star review, every little blurb that you put up on Apple, it really, really helps get our work out there and have the podcast be recommended to more and more viewers. And also be sure to check out our services. Key offers personalized coaching and magic and mediumship. Learn how to scry your spirits, how to identify them as they are, and work to increase your ability to connect with them. He does sorcery for hire, so get him for your court cases, your
Mhm.
lover drawings, road openings, you name it, he does it. He does readings as well as customs, talismans, oils, and tools. I offer bulk and Feathermancer readings, currently on hiatus until September 2024. And Salt offers anything and everything astrological, be it horary, electional, or natal, as well as instance watching divination. Lastly, you can hit us up on social media. I'm at Dragon Cunning. Salt is Salt C and C. And Key is barnowl.key on the Instagram. All
Mhm.
right, King. Take it away.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so thank you for the introduction.
Hmm.
And as was teased earlier, the chapter one, if you will, of this episode is why we hate the fuck government. And just to qualify that, this is, first and foremost, a magic podcast, not a politics podcast. There are plenty of other people who do that work better than we could. But I do want to preface this episode of providing these sorceress techniques by saying why we would want or need to employ them in the first place. And as was said, we make no secrets about being leftists who are incredibly concerned with the authoritarian turn that most governments in the world, honestly, have taken in the last half century or so, and just been coming up into adulthood and through our mid to late 20s watching our civil rights and our ability to actually express ourselves in a political capacity or as members of a state, participants in an economy, in ways that are maximizing the good for people in the world, and maximizing the amount of choices people have to make, ensuring that everyone is able to live a life, let alone a comfortable one, without being oppressed or otherwise victimized by the state and its enforcers just for living their lives.
Hmm. Absolutely. I mean, my birth certificate says Yugoslavia, no
Mhm.
longer existing. The necromancy of being born in a country that no longer exists is always fascinating to me. But it's a topic very near and dear to my heart as well. There's many anti-fascist comrades whose work I read in our language as well, writing out of all the former Yugo states that I feel really strongly about supporting and making sure that when it comes to supporting the global working class and when it comes to ensuring that every minority, whether gender or sexual or racial or in any particular direction, is able to live a safe and prosperous life. One of the critical obstacles is going to be corruption and far right-wing policies and so on, and especially now it's you have to be kind of new here to not see what's been going on in Central and Eastern Europe, in what's been going on in North America and in many other states around the world. It's these are dark times, so the comfort and solidarity we can bring to each other is essential. And since it's a magic podcast, of course, the most important part for us to also be advocating for as well is to bring agency to the disenfranchised through magic.
Definitely, yeah. Looking at governments past, it's like, why are the magicians a problem for states that are consolidating power? Because this stuff works, at the end of the day. We're the ones who can help out in ways that the state cannot control and are in some ways outside of that sphere of influence, conspiracies about state magicians aside and all that fun stuff about the CIA, which of course we can get into.
The CIA can astral project, can you? Yes.
Hmm, for real, yeah. Getting my start in that CIA reading room. Shoutouts Project Grow Flame. Oh man. But really to talk about what we're doing here requires us to look at the state and the body of law that surrounds it and its apparatuses of enforcement of those laws, be it through the police as a form of legitimized, in heavy air quotes, violence, or through the judiciary that is enacting a different sort of slower and more dystopian violence upon the populace. Not to theory post, but to get into this quote from Jeff Farrell's Anarchist Criminology.
Law solidifies and reproduces existing structures of power, thereby placing limitations on possible social relations and exacerbating crime and violence.
So, kind of what I'm positing here to begin with is like that when we're running into these structures of power that are explicitly designed to crush people and kind of keep them in line. They are explicitly self perpetuating. They limit what is possible and require means outside of that structure, outside of working from within, and outside of revolutionary politic, which of course we can talk about another time. We're talking about the revolutionary politic in the form of doing sorcery, in the form of doing magic, in the form of enacting change in ways that are fundamentally untraceable and working to maximize the good both for those doing it and those being affected by it. So, as part and parcel with this, we're also supporting through this a more kind of holistic and transformative view of justice, not even just rehabilitative, existing within carceral structures that are already entrenched. But, we're looking more toward what are underlying structures that lead people to commit crimes? Why do we criminalize some behaviors but not others? And just keeping these things most in mind and saying people are desperate. And so they are doing things that would not otherwise happen. And so positing a view in which we can kind of help people directly or help people and create structures that are, you know, better as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And, why to hate the fuck government. And going into like what is actually going on, what people are facing and how like what we need to overcome. And the following examples are going to be a bit US centric because that's where a lot of my own activism and political life has been, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
And just to quote the writers at Antipolitica, the journal, saying that the whole point is no action you can take is apolitical. Everything in life is in some way controlled and legislated for or against. So,
I love that
mm.
you're quoting Antipolitica, which is a from Balkan journal, or that is
Mhm.
periodically released on anti-fascist politics. Damn, I've rubbed off on you.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, learn my language, and then we can
Mhm.
we can really talk.
Yeah, for sure. It's on the list. Just have
Hmm.
the Japanese and then the French and then BCS. It's all coming together. Oh man.
Good old BCS. That's Bosnian, Croatian, Serbian.
Mhm. Just to focus on some examples of why things are not so great. We
Hmm.
start in the view of like why we need to be doing this transformative justice constitutionally. We can start at the lowest hanging fruit and therefore a bit of a cliched example but an important one to highlight of what is actually incentivizing this carceral state that we find ourselves looking down the barrel of that gun is right there, section 1, 13th amendment of the constitution, the carve out that says you can be enslaved as punishment for a crime. And
Hmm.
why prison wages exist but they're cents per hour,
Yeah.
why people are being crushed in the system, why prison terms in the US are so long, where if someone gets scooped up through really no fault of their own out of desperation, they're spending 10, 15 years behind bars for kind of nothing.
One of the most important texts that I read on this in my undergrad was The New Jim Crow, Mass
Hmm.
Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness by Michelle Alexander. Absolutely a phenomenal book. Very, very like easy to read in the sense that it's like very well written, but very hard to read in a sense that it's just so harrowing. Phenomenal, understanding of how it was that systematic racial discrimination did not at all end with the civil rights movement reforms, but rather the US criminal justice system has continued to use the war of drugs as well as many other kinds of political strategies to systematically disenfranchise and oppress people of color, especially Black people of color in the United States.
Hmm. Definitely. After the end of the war in court, if you will, the judiciary has just been further criminalizing and eroding the rights of groups that are marginalized. Specifically, Black Americans have been the chief victims, where, just as was posited in that book, Jim Crow is reestablished. As the civil rights amendments passed, it's 50 years of creating carve outs of saying, it doesn't matter. Like,
Mm.
even recently, we had, at the time of recording a couple days ago, it's like, well, you can hold your racist election. It's like, we can show that you have racially gerrymandered your maps. You are illegally diluting the representation of predominantly Black districts, but we're arbitrarily too close to an election. Therefore, we're having this, racist ass sham election, and you can't do anything about it.
Mm.
And rulings like this are becoming more and more routine, where not only are the ways to access representation to actually create these changes being limited by the day, loopholes are either tightening for the people who would wish to exploit them in service of the good, or being created for different apparatuses of the state, be it police on a local or federal level, intelligence agencies domestically. Looking at you, FBI, hello. um, Thanks for the warrantless wiretap you're about to put up. But also actively destroying the accumulation of generational passing of wealth and of property for people who were able to gain it for the first time.
Mhm.
With the hard-won civil rights that they did have before, the erosion immediately began. Looking at civil asset forfeiture, allowing the state to legally steal your shit, even when you're not guilty of a crime. That's the civil part of civil asset forfeiture. Supreme Court has ruled that you do not need a warrant or need to charge someone with any crime. You just have to say it was incident to an arrest that can later be found unlawful, and they can hold your stuff ransom. Recently, Coley v. Marshall came down saying you are not entitled to public representation. You have to go before a judge and pay for your own lawyer to get it back, often legal fees being in excess of the property seized. And you have to pay, exorbitant rates even to get it out of an impound lot if you don't have to go before a court. In the 20 years, 2000 to 2019 inclusive, police departments in the US alone made $70 billion through this process. This averages out to 3.5 billion per year, which by recent estimates is more than half of the value of all larceny thefts committed in the US in a year.
Holy shit.
So, counting theft from the state, counting wage theft that is becoming increasingly legally legitimized, and a practical exercise, people are kind of being grounded to the pavement. This is not even to speak of the more egregious, uses of force and the monopoly on violence that the state has created for itself. Of course, looking at structures such as qualified immunity doctrines, eroding the rights to privacy. Of course, with Dobbs v. Jackson overturning the right to an abortion
Mm.
being created due to privacy rights, explicitly naming cases that protect the ability of LGBT people to not only get married, but to have sex. um,
Mm.
with concurrent opinions in Dobbs calling into question Obergefell.
That was in the Clarence Thomas concurrence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, this isn't even to speak of the more egregious violations, warrantless surveillance, the ability of the US to operate within a corporatist system to buy data that we are forced to consent to collection of in a increasingly online world. Extrajudicial renditions, torture programs, black sites existing all over the world, Guantanamo still being open,
Mm-hmm.
um, all the usual bullshit. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we also move into, fuck the cops directly, right? The idea of law enforcement anywhere in the world being predicated upon as I was saying earlier, legitimized, quote unquote, with heavy irony behind that, threat of violence against people by the state that have been made more egregious as time has gone on. Just to name a small handful: Nieves v. Bartlett, legitimizing retaliatory arrests; Utah v. Strife, legitimizing most conceivable Fourth Amendment violations rising from search incident to arrest, which is a legal mechanism that is allowing people to search your shit. And as much as I get annoyed with her on certain issues, especially recently, Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor's dissent in this case fucking rules. Further quotes as follows.
Do not be soothed by the opinion's technical language. This case allows the police to stop you on the street, demand your identification, and check it for outstanding traffic warrants, even if you are doing nothing wrong.
And this second quote that I think really hammers home what we're dealing with here.
You are not a citizen of a democracy, but the subject of a carceral state, just waiting to be cataloged.
Which is extremely dramatic, but extremely accurate language.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like as soon as they get like your DNA or your prints in the system, right? The idea of being able to run it against absolutely every single conceivable other case, including ones that you're only, let's say, like if they have a warrant to like search you for one thing, it does not mean that, you necessarily are now completely open and above all other kinds of understandings, right? It's spooky, like in terms of just being able to actually like cement the power of the carceral state to be like, well, we're gonna run your prints on absolutely everything else that you're not even suspected for without a warrant, just because we have you in the system now.
Mm-hmm. Legit, yeah. And not only, with the DNA thing, just to go back to the idea of like the corporatist state that I name dropped earlier, Ancestry.com, their own DNA tests, that data is available for sale or even for free to law enforcement agencies. So not only you, but all of your family is compromised in the commission of crimes that may have no victim.
Mm-hmm.
It is a surveillance state of our own making. Couple others, Fraser v. Cupp, establishing the ability of the police to lie to you constantly. They do not have to tell you the truth. They do not have to be your friend. They can say whatever the fuck they want and get away with it. Burgess v. Tompkins, subverting rights to decline self-incrimination, with further carve-outs created there by Harris v. New York v. Quarles, and Vega v. Tico. A very, again, fantastic Sotomayor popping off with these cases. Quote goes as follows.
Suspects must now unambiguously invoke their right to remain silent, which counterintuitively requires them to speak. At the same time, suspects will be legally presumed to have waived their rights, even if they have given no clear expression of their intent to do so.
So this is the classic, right? To not speak, you must speak.
Yeah, it's like a basically, unless you explicitly say like it's basically like magical words to be like, I am explicitly invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, then it's not guaranteed. Like you can still be on the record, as if you hadn't done that at all, even just by like declining to speak, and then they like wear you down using very psychological torture tricks until you do. The ability for like let's say a lawyer to get that thrown out of court is getting more and more shrunk.
It's next to impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with some of those cases like Harris and Quarles. They are ruling that evidence is admissible despite being obtained what otherwise would have been illegally.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you see a cop dancing the Macarena, run.
Yeah.
So, of course, we're just kind of seeing consistent patterns of violations of civil and human rights without recourse in any branch of the government. We have Department of Justice reports finding in the hundreds that police departments routinely and universally rely on unconstitutional and excessive uses of force. And these are all exact quotes, by the way, from
Mm-hmm.
their reporting. Discriminate against BIPOC individuals when enforcing the law, routinely suppress constitutionally protected speech and retaliate against journalists, routinely violate the Americans with Disabilities Act when responding to individuals in crisis, those with substance use disorders, and those with mental or behavioral health challenges. And note that these are all the state reporting on itself. Even with its self-referential biases in play, these findings are not contested and, in fact, legally binding in some cases.
Yeah, this isn't like, oh, we internally investigate ourselves and have absolved ourselves of any guilt or culpability. This is the state investigating itself and being like, this is what they're willing to admit on paper. Imagine
Mhm.
what they're not willing to admit.
Exactly, yeah. And, speaking of, Hampton v. United States legitimizes entrapment. The police can set you up from start to finish. And as long as you say, all right, sure, at one point in that process, you are going to jail for more than 20 years. Navarrete v. California gives sufficient grounds for stopping you and interrogating you on unverified anonymous tips to a police department. So anyone can call up the local station, be like, this person's committing this crime, hang up the phone. That is not illegal, and it creates valid pretext.
Which, of course, just like anyone who wants to rid their community of, ethnic minority groups that they don't like and are like, oh, they're being loud and they're having like a block party. I don't like this. And they know that like a violent cop will come in, at best, like induce a really uncomfortable interaction or everyone involved, more likely will hurt somebody physically, and in worst case scenario will kill somebody. They could just get away with that scot free.
It's completely protected. And for that protection, Pearson v. Ray, Harlow v. Fitzgerald, two cases that create the doctrine of qualified immunity wholesale, which insulates the state and its offending officers from suit for most violations of your rights, no matter how egregious. This is the constant defense of saying, we investigated ourselves, no problem here. You have no legal claim by which you can otherwise rectify the violation of your rights at that. It's like
Hmm.
done and done, right?
Hmm.
Smith v. Maryland, warrantless surveillance is completely legitimate if they are looking at who you are calling. So they can establish entire networks of people and run that sort of intelligence, compromise everything. And, while we're at it, of course, I named Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health, the infamous case that overturned the right to an abortion. 303 Creative LLC versus Alenis, which legalizes discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation wholesale. All you have to say is, I don't believe that I should have to serve these people. And it is a magic word that says you can hate the gays.
Hmm.
And then, of course, the long, long, long history of legislating against the activities of unions and kneecapping them as nexuses of organization and effective protest by suppressing their abilities to conduct effective strikes, suppressing their abilities to recruit members, suppressing their ability to collect dues to fund legal and political campaigns that would better the lives of their workers concretely, and just any number of these very concrete sites of erosion of our ability to live unperturbed by the state.
Hmm. I have to
And
say, there's a podcast both of us really like called Five to Four. So
mhm,
that's like five and then dash four, obviously a reference to the Supreme Court with nine justices. That if whether you're American or not, like I'm not, but I love listening to that podcast because those decisions obviously shape a lot of politics even around the states, right? It's enormously influential culture of legal jurisprudence.
mhm,
And their episodes are amazing. It's three lawyers who go through various cases, both current ones as well as ones from decades past, and they analyze all the ways in which the Supreme Court has been a way of essentially aiding extreme amounts of corruption and oppression in the United States. The episode on the 303 Creative LLC versus Alinas these are shorter episodes. These aren't like long ones like Frightful Hells.
mhm.
They are short and sweet, like 40 minutes usually, and they're very, very good. Like it's great. You don't need any legal background or any knowledge of US politics to understand them. They're excellent. And that episode in particular blew my mind. I could not handle the fact that in this case, a Smith suit, right? She was like, I don't want to have to design a wedding website for a gay couple because that goes against my personal beliefs. She was not at the time designing wedding websites. She had never received a request to design a wedding website for a same-sex couple. This was not like Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission. This was like this situation had not happened.
And at some point in the case, in the lower courts, there was a fake guy
There was a fake gay
who,
guy. It wasn't even a real person. The name that they took in the address is from a straight guy who was married to a woman. You know, like it's not like this was literally obviously invented and engineered to push it up to the Supreme Court level just to get this ruling. Like it drives me crazy that it succeeded.
right? And not only was he a straight dude, he was a web designer.
He was himself a web designer. Imagine being that guy. Oh, poor man.
uh,
Yeah. Listen, I for those listening, we're about to get to the magic part, but
mhm,
it's essential to know some of the Supreme Court cases, like from, obviously Key, you're American, so you're gonna go to at it from your perspective, but it's essential to understand the ways that this has been systematically eroding these
mhm,
decisions, the civil liberties of, in this case, Americans, but of course it is going to be extending far beyond the United States because other countries, Canada, the UK, many states in Europe and abroad are looking towards America and are seeing what they can also get away with. And America is
mhm.
also looking towards them to seeing what they could get away with. I mean, you can see the ties between, major state officials in the United States and people like Viktor Orban, for example, from Hungary, right?
Mhm. Or a lot of current politics going on in Belarus
Yes,
as
exactly.
the focus of far right organization. And part of why I want to outline all of this as well, just to tie it back to a magic angle, is there is a lot out there and a lot of really good stuff out there at that of magic against specifically the police, how to protect yourself from cops, how to keep them away, how to run your business unaccosted, and how to kind of not run into the state in that capacity. I have found good stuff, but not as much when it comes to the judiciary and judicial reform specifically. There's plenty to say, okay, if you get arrested and you go into court, do these things, chew on these herbs and spit them on the floor, put these dusts on the ground, and you'll get off specifically. But how to more holistically prevent this continual erosion and where you can enchant at different points in this process to say, okay, it stops here. Let me reinforce this backslide. Let me enact this change on a political level where, as the current way that the legal system is set up, these judges locally are having an incredible amount of power and discretion, and even on a slightly higher level, especially in the federal circuit courts and courts of appeal and all that stuff. So really highlighting and emphasizing the need for people to not just be doing, okay, my house, no cop can come within 50 feet of my house, emphasizing the need of, we are existing in a spiritual ecology that is affected by the state and its own rules and laws, as saturated with the dead who are obeying regulations possibly from their time or existing somehow within the present day and being affected by what is happening in that way.
Hmm.
So it's all the same. Shit kind of sucks right now.
No, for
But
real.
there is a lot of magic that can be done about it.
Hmm.
To kind of examine, how to do this magic in the first place, it's important to do a bit of recon, shall I say. And this takes us into the header part two, studying the magic of our enemies. And this really was something that has been in the back of my mind, but we had a banger of a question to one of the Q and A's about how magic is being done on the right and
Hmm.
how favor is being curried in our world through the agency of spirits for these different political causes. And it's always important to remember that there are spirits who are either amoral and will answer the prayers of whoever calls on them, or there are spirits who genuinely like to protect entrenched structures of power as a function of upholding order.
Yeah.
As
And this was a question we got from the Patreon Q&A that was like, do you have thoughts on the magic of modern right-wing Christianity? Is this different American Protestant churches have become more extreme, leading into practices like spiritual warfare,
Mhm.
exorcism, and so on. Like there are practices with historical precedent, but like what is it like for them to be levied up to seize and prop up and reinforce state powers, because it's like easy to clown on that and be like, oh, it's cringe, blah, blah, blah. But like, what is that organically? Is it's worth examining, right? And so this question really, like Key and I really thought about it for a while before answering it for our patron. And I'm glad to see you bring it up here because I think it's extremely worth noting that like it's kind of like Saint Martha, right? Like
Mhm.
famously a saint that helps liberate women from abusive husbands. Tie the man down and keep him faithful, but also make sure he doesn't hurt you and so on. But also famously also used to subjugate women, right?
Yeah.
And to ensure that they stay in the home and that they're not able to escape a man, for example. And you bring up some really important examples of the way that this magic goes both ways.
Yeah, and like very famously, people praying to Santissima Muerte, she'll just
Hmm.
as readily step in to ensure that the death of a police officer is as good as anyone else's,
Hmm.
and give that, protection from what is an incredibly dangerous occupation. Also just as famously and in the same capacity, Saint Michael, patron of the police, patron of the military, will protect people. Plenty of footage coming out of Ukraine of tanks where the bullet was stopped not by the armor, by the Saint Michael or the Virgin Mary prayer card that was inside.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and as a pretty extreme example, but for people who are saved or protected magically in that way. And of course, we can get into more explicit examples of like any number of militaristic or nationalistic patron saints being, in my opinion, misappropriated for this purpose. St. George becoming a unfortunate emblem of British nationalisms,
Hmm.
both iconographically and in a more spiritual capacity.
I
Um,
also I also think about what does it mean to have like entire church communities praying for police or for military purposes
mhm.
and so on, right? Like directly fueling a kind of spiritual forever war, because there's plenty of spirits that are more than happy to keep that machine oiled, and they
Yeah.
feed off of it, and that's what it means to them. And so it's one of those things that it's not to say that like these saints are like bad, you know what I mean? Like not at
Mhm.
all, right? It's just more to say that like the engines, spiritually speaking, that fuel these petitions respond to many sources of prayer.
Genuinely, yeah. Like just as they will do these things that facilitate the oppression of other people, they are just as liberatory.
Hmm.
Like they will bust you out of jail just as quickly as they will put you in there.
Yeah.
Um, Especially in the case of those more amoral forces in the world. Um,
Hmm. And there's so many like articles out there about like the same rival gangs praying to the same saint, like in the case of Santísima Muerte, or like even the being petitioned by cops as well as the people who are trying to avoid them
mhm.
for the same kind of prayer. So I think it's important to know that like do not play this black and white morality game with spirits and do not paint them with these broad brushes. This is about how power and petitions get fulfilled. This is not about personality and about personal like, convictions on the behalf of like individual beings.
Exactly, yeah. And
It's a
of
little bit
course,
like, like using a knife, to both like cut vegetables as well as like, stab somebody, right?
yeah, they are their own forces, and they will respond in their own ways to different prayers as they see fit.
Mm.
Especially in the cases of like more deified figures and that wisdom. If Ogun sees fit to protect a police officer,
Mm.
then something's going on there,
And then
right?
who's to say that, individuals with these jobs, don't have magic themselves and don't
Yeah.
practice it, right? And there's even cases of occult orders that are explicitly fascist.
Hmm.
And th this is not to be like, oh, everyone I don't like is a fascist, everyone who is slightly more right of me is a fascist. Like that word has a very specific meaning, and it's important to ground it in that. But there are explicitly fascist groups that, not only meet the definition by every stretch of the means, but even personally identify that way themselves. There are pagan reconstruction groups with nationalist and racial essentialist motives. There are Christian nationalist orders that, try and keep a kind of spiritual warfare bent going and see the legalization of same-sex marriage, for example, or the legalization of abortion as participating in this very warfare, right?
Mhm.
And of course, there's the Order of Nine Angles, Temple of Blood, the Nationalist Socialist Order of Nine Angles, all that bullshit. The
Mhm.
satanic orders that explicitly attempt to raise extremists who will go out and commit crimes and will attempt to destabilize, various avenues of human life in order to create suffering and all that stuff. Like these are all losers that are very documented, and their numbers are few, and
Mhm.
ultimately most of them are sock puppet accounts for the exact same people. I mean, like I think all of ONA is basically just David Maya on like 70 computers, accounts that
Yeah.
just like trying to like post on David Icke forums, making himself sound cool. It's pathetic. It's genuinely cringe. But I think that something that's important to note though is that these have real world effects. Like somebody will find those PDFs and get inspired and do things, and they have, right? There's been cases in the news, even far going back, just sort of most recent, like 5 years, where someone has gone out and committed a crime because they were like, oh, I'm gonna go call somebody, because they read the ONA papers. It's, that they would have found any other reason or justification to do the same thing. Like it's not because it's, it's like incredibly,
Mhm.
ridiculous, drivel, pseudo-intellectual bullshit is necessarily that enlightening. But it is important to understand that, like, nevertheless, there are, individuals everywhere who are using magic for fascist purposes. Not to say just individuals who use it to oppress others on a personal basis. So, like we were kind of joking about earlier, if you're if the CIA can astral project, you should be able to do so too.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even go back to Yugoslavia, right?
Mm.
Grupa 69.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Their sorcery against the CIA.
I encourage everyone to look that up. That is a wild ride in history.
Hmm.
And we'll include some links to like podcasts and other episodes of things that go into some of this stuff if it fascinates you. Especially like learning about their influence on politics. But for now, I believe you have for us a toolkit. And now that we've gone over some of the why, I
Hmm.
believe it's time to go into the how.
So to get out of that deeply depressing situation that we face,
Hmm.
there are just as many tools to get out of the bullshit that has been created and that we find ourselves facing as there are to put us back into it. Um, so, I just wanted to start very briefly with like things to have on hand. We'll say the toolbox that you should have.
Hmm.
Um, and this list is by no means exhaustive, and similar ones can be found, across the internet. Matt Venus, fantastic course on law keep away magic.
That he gave it for free during the height of the George Floyd protests.
Hmm.
You and I were in that live. It
We
was
were, yeah.
excellent. Yeah.
But that is a fantastic herbal that really dives into the correspondences of a lot of the things I'm about to name, herbs and dirts and other fun things alike. So go check that out. Support Matt as always.
Hmm.
So things to have: oregano leaves and tansy. Keep both of those growing around your property. For some, these are invisibility. For others, these are court case herbs of the highest caliber. And for others still, these are the doctors of confusion, both eliminating it for yourself and inducing it in others.
Hmm.
Small things that cause confusion on that point are also useful: fennel seed, black mustard seed, sesame seeds. And then just for outright protection, nothing beats asafoetida, salt, and black pepper.
One of the things I really like doing with fennel seed is sprinkling around my home.
Mhm.
And it's so good to just kind of keep as like a word to protect from like various meddlesome forces, right?
Right.
It's tansy is also great to just include in your shoes, right? To kind of
Mhm.
keep the law away as well as carry a bit of it on your person, or I like also adding it to floor washes to just kind of make sure that like the police always pass me over, and it's really funny because like I'm not doing anything in particular that would warrant their attention, but I don't trust them to not meddle, right? So it's one of
Mhm.
those important things to be like, well, if I have a friend over, if we're just having like a good time, like I just want to make sure that I'm invisible, because it doesn't matter that we have nothing to hide. It doesn't matter that we're not doing anything illegal. Like that's never stopped anybody from harassing somebody, when it comes to cops.
And especially as earlier, pretexts can be manufactured and they can steal your shit.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
But speaking of preventing theft, right? You
Hmm.
can always get stuff like Cascara Sagrada, Hydron the Conqueror, if you're male, or Orus Root, if you're a woman, or Calamus Roots, if you are neither of those things. Um, Licorice
Hmm.
Roots as well, Tarragon Leaves. Shout out to St. Martha for those.
I love tarragon.
Hmm.
Where you just have a pot of it growing like next to your St. Martha icon or statue or whatever, or just in your kitchen. It's so versatile.
Hmm. I will say, one of the most wild things I've ever seen done with magic is Sphyngo with some tarragon.
Oh, yeah, well, the story, it's not even that wild though.
I don't know. It was a defining moment in my life for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. We had gone to the grocery store to get some fresh herbs for a ritual we were gonna do, and you brought me some tarragon, but it was like wilted because it was like 11 p.m. We went to the grocery store like as it was closing. So it was like not their best tarragon. And you were like, "Can
Mhm.
you make this green and vivid again?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I'm a Balkan witch, of course I can." Like,
And then these plants like literally came alive. They were moving, they were glowing, they were like vibrant and green and like popping off very physically, all of those things, not just to the psychic sight. And it was very, very cool.
that was one of the things that my mentors trained me on, right? Is making sure they
Mhm.
can, in your hands, they will like physically grow again. Yeah. It helps to have a good St. Martha pack, though. Not gonna lie.
And shouts to you for showing me that one's possible.
Hey, I've
I-
seen you do it too. You've
yeah,
learned.
I learned it from you.
Yes. I, fuck yeah,
uh,
dude.
well,
Oh,
I was gonna say, kind of legendary moment where everyone went quiet and it was broken by me saying, "You're so cool."
oh, thank you. Love you, King. Always and forever.
Love you too, King.
Yay. Also, we were talking about Cascara Sagrada, the California buckthorn. So good as an incense to fumigate legal documents. I got that tip from Matt Venus.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Fantastic for it. Dill sometimes as well.
Hmm.
Dill seed especially throw in and use as such. Fumigating your clothes with that as well is really good
Hmm.
before going into court. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do there, like calamus, licorice, and deer's tongue, especially together.
Hmm.
Deer's tongue is another one for charisma and court case stuff.
Or
Um,
like even just boosting your own lawyer, like eloquence
yeah,
for them so they can plead your case better.
yeah, exactly.
Talking your way out of any situation, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Kind of on that same note, Celandine, Lojon, aka Galangal,
Hmm.
and Calendula are court case herbs par excellence, usable as well for all that sort of thing.
Great to combine with Psalm 7, especially verses 8 and 9, which you can write on paper and carry in yourself, fumigated with the same herbs or have some of their chips on them. Really good when you're falsely accused. Also, Psalm 38, verses 20 to 22, great for court cases. 52 for against persecution, also 43. And I really like the Psalm 26 for when you're threatened with imprisonment.
I always like to throw in Psalm 77 as well,
Mhm.
with 7 for additional protection, and also because then you get that 777.
777!
I think at this point we're gonna have the entire Exuma Diobia Man like as a discography as our Akasha records.
Oh, for sure. By the time we're through with this podcast, we'll have every song twice. Oh man. And then of course if you are quote unquote rightly convicted, or if a conviction has come down against you, there's a very famous one recorded. I've seen it recorded by Cat Ironwood and reproduced from the same source in Professor Charles Porterfield's works. But sumac berries, go to a sumac tree, plead your case in front of it, gather 9 berries from the plant.
Mm.
before you go before the judge. Hold them on your person, and you will receive a reduced sentence, or something in the case will break, and you will get a lesser charge.
Mhm.
So yeah. Also, just to cite Porterfield where it's due, both A Deck of Spells and The Sporting Life are two fantastic works in the vein of today's episode that I highly recommend people go check out.
Mhm.
Just one that I've used personally to great success is Seven of Clubs from Deck of Spells to confuse court proceedings. Very, very good.
Yeah, it's been great seeing you do court case work for your clients.
Hmm. Definitely, yeah. What it was really funny because one of the clients reached out to me and was like, "Hey, do you have the fact that you do really good court case work on the website?" And I'm like, "Let me fix that." Yeah, I was glad it worked out for them.
Mhm.
One of the other really important things that I wanted to do as sort of a class of workings for today's episode is helping people help people. We've talked a lot about how to protect yourself, but for those who cannot necessarily protect themselves, are not magicians themselves, or find themselves at the receiving end of some sort of violence, state or otherwise, just throw, whenever you have the time and energy and a spare candle, throw road openings at organizations local to you to have more resources, be it food, water, money, people, whatever it is.
Absolutely. I've mentioned before, an offering you can do to certain like saints and spirits is donate to good causes in their name. And like I've done like, dollar amounts multiplied by 9. And it's just like this is in the name of Saint Cyprian and Justina to food banks, for example.
Mhm.
But something I really appreciate about you highlighting here is like actual support for comrades and organizations to have resources and like just boosting them. If you can't be out there protesting, if you physically or career wise cannot be even seen sharing some of these things to your stories on social media, this is a good way to get involved from even just from your own home.
Yeah, definitely. And even if you have a position or a job or something similar where, like you were saying, you can't promote more explicitly social justice oriented organizations, police support, other stuff, harm reduction for substance use disorders, housing projects for youth or homeless or victims of domestic violence,
Hmm.
local medical organizations, even anything helps. One of the really famous ones that coming out of Southeast Asia, namely Thailand, where I first heard it, is donate to coffin funds. Very good necromancy that people may have good burials.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk so much in necromancy about what it means to die well and to ensure that you have the right burial or the right kind of cremation ceremony done for you so that you don't
Mhm.
become restless. Like what a beautiful way to contribute to that. Especially for people who come from poorer backgrounds that are not always their families are not always able to afford for them that kind of grave.
Definitely, yeah.
I also go to cemeteries and clean up the graves of the spirits that I work with, and even the ones that are around. Like I'll refresh things. So like if I see like one of those like lanterns like knocked over or whatever like that, I'll put it back up and I'll like sweep a little bit around the area as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go on, another good thing, go on, find a grave and
Hmm.
find some graves, let people get plugged into their ancestors and let those ancestors get plugged into their people.
Yeah, there's a few different spirits. I've taken you there, so you know which graves I'm talking about of very prominent civil rights heroes near where I
Mhm.
live who especially were involved in helping escaped slaves find protection and footing and prosperity as well financially when they reached the northern border. So these are spirits that I give a lot of offerings to and I regularly work with on behalf of friends and other kinds of causes to remind them to continue to intervene on our behalf, that the fight is not yet over.
Definitely,
It's just that kind of like no one gets left behind kind of magic.
yeah, just ensuring that everything continues and everything moves smoothly as time goes on. and elevating and creating in some ways knowable points of ancestry and wisdom for these movements. Kind of the importance of allowing those spirits to keep up with their own desires too,
Mm-hmm.
granting them tools, offerings, whatever they may need. So very good necromancy to be had there.
Yeah, totally.
While on the topic of graveyards, find judges that were known to be especially just in their rulings or focused on making things more equitable for those who find themselves in their courts. Find various police officers and steal the dirt from their graves, which we'll get to. There's a chief of police. Take that immediately. We'll get to what to do with that in a moment.
Yeah, that's a special tool that will help us for later.
Yeah, right. This is a mystery Mouska tool that will aid me in putting out blue candles. Still one of the most egregious uses of a blue candle of all time
For
is
real.
tip and tailing a blue candle and lighting it and snapping it in half on top of a machete to get a capture the energy of a cop testifying against another to put into a powder.
So funny.
Lord.
And it worked so well.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So to get into protections and things like that, both for yourself and others, in the playing card vein, Jack of Diamonds is the protection card of great fame, being the only Jack with both of its eyes showing in a standard bicycle playing card deck.
Mm-hmm.
This makes it automatically good for protection and things like that. Setting this, often staring down a blue flannel doll.
Mm-hmm.
There's an account in Miss Ada's Hoodoo Justice Magic Spells for Power Protection and Righteous Vindication, where you take a stuffed like toy of a cop,
Mm-hmm.
and so you take out all the stuffing, in either case the flannel doll or the cop doll, and you fill it with the dirt from the grave of a police officer or specifically a chief of police if you can find it.
Mm-hmm.
You can also substitute around. You can write the name of the current chief inside of it on paper, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and shove that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Bind the doll tightly with thread. If you're feeling particularly ironic, put handcuffs on it or zip ties on it.
It's for
Bind
the
it.
irony, officer.
Yeah, legit. It's a meme, officer.
It's in Minecraft.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But you should then blindfold or put a sack over the head of the doll. And then, depending on the variation, you hide it under your front porch or near your front door. Alternatively, you keep the doll around and you bathe it in saturated salt water every day, while demanding that the officers under the authority of the chief whose name you have shoved in there remain oblivious to your activities and remain helpless to stop you, which I really like. I like that one.
That is a good one, yeah.
Oh fuck. Yeah, waterboard the cop doll.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. So then another thing you can do, the dirt from the grave of an infant for the quality of that innocence. Leave toys on the grave. Leave all sorts of good thing. Baby
Mm-hmm.
food. Take that and mix it with sulfur and salt and make crosses of it on the ground in front of each door on the property to protect it from the meddling of the police. Sulfur conjured to deter them, keep them away, exorcise them as the demons they are. Lamau. The salt to ground everything and the innocence of that dirt to be the only thing that has cast out. To have it be like, oh, this is a good upstanding place. Then, kind of on that note, of course, installing different spirits, different familiars around the property in various ways is always very important. Leaving things in some capacity, guarding the doors, guarding the hinges of the doors, guarding the driveway, the sidewalk, wherever people may be flowing in and out of wherever it is you stay, and kind of protecting that. Keeping away those who should stay away and letting in those who should come in.
Mm-hmm.
Infinite ways to do that. Some of them bound by different traditions, and others, more idiosyncratic. But always negotiate it with your spirits. See who is your person for the door,
Yeah.
and ask them to stand guard over it. So then, one of the very simple things you can do that I've had some luck with in that vein is with that spirit. And this is a technique that I saw written down for the first time in Matt Venus's class,
Mhm.
which is a red flannel bag with salt, whole peppercorns, and asafoetida all bound up, and then baptize it, name it, give it some whiskey. Either carry it on the person at the waistband, or in my experience, it works if you put it by the door with that spirit, and whatever modifications they tell you to do to it. And it's good at keeping bad things out.
Mhm.
And then just some more fun ones to throw into the mix. In Charles Porterfield's The Sporting Life, a fantastic book,
Mhm.
there is an account from someone by the name of Sean Laveau, who says that a mojo hand composed of a gator paw, a high John the Conqueror root, and a silver dollar will protect you from any misfortune while running drugs.
Mhm.
Um, obviously the active commission of a crime, but fuck it, we're keeping the law away.
Mhm. Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
mhm. And of course, it kind of goes back to that amorality point where it's like, even if you're doing some kind of crazy stuff and taking risks like that, spirits will protect you.
Yeah. Especially if you
And
know how to move them, because they'll also get you in jail and laugh when you don't get out,
oh yeah,
unless you know how to move them to get you out, right? So it's important to like, whatever you're doing, make sure that you're staying safe and that you're staying magically strapped.
oh yeah. And another account to that effect is from the Hyatt material. There was a South Carolinian root doctor who went by the name the courtroom specialist.
That's the title you gotta aspire to, Key, because you've been really you've been really helping many people out with their court case issues in pretty fantastic ways. The make it's time to conjure the spirit of the courtroom specialist.
Yeah, legit. This guy's tech is good too. I was like, holy shit, I'm using that immediately.
Mhm, mhm,
But the one in question is work to have a case dismissed, which is mixing ground up dirt dauber nest with salt, pepper, and any sort of love powder.
mhm.
Then you take that mixture and you sprinkle it in the foyer of the courthouse, such that the jurors in your case will cross over it when they're entering. And when the janitors at the end of the day sweep up that dust, they will sweep out the case with the powder.
That's so good. I love the way that the janitors sweep your case out with the dust. Like, oh,
Right.
what a great double bind. Makes me think
This
of those charms with like the two alligator heads facing away from each other and like something going through their jaws. It's got that like two-headed, nature to it.
yeah, for real. This guy's definitely deserving of the title of the courtroom specialist after that one.
Yeah.
Oh man, shout out to that guy.
Hmm.
And another one, easy to do, which is why I include it and strongly recommend it. It's also from Matt Venus's class, which is get an image of the local police and whatever county sheriff and whatever state police agency have jurisdiction where you are. Dress them all with law, keep away oil, and then sandwich them between two mirrors facing each other.
Yeah, that keeps them confused, right? They're like internally investigating each other without necessarily looking at your business.
Always fighting over jurisdiction of like who is in charge of this case.
Yeah, get them hung by their own bureaucracy. Really appreciate always the emphasis on like if you're gonna go protesting, the have the chief of police and notable, police officers like Juju to have their names and faces, completely covered in various dusts and dirts and things of that nature, either at home or in your shoes. Obviously, if you get caught and your shoes get taken off, that would look really fucking weird. But but whatever, it's not. You can obviously keep things at home. I'm a big fan of like situations in which you have pentacles of like martial pentacles for protection or the sixth one that keeps the enemies weapons turned against you, back on them, literally on the right shield or inside your motorcycle helmet. Like if you're wearing all black and, covering up identifying tattoos, you have, your next of, your important like 2 call phone numbers like in Sharpie on your hand, and you have like if you have like long hair or certain kinds of things that are easily identifiable, like it's tucked away, it's tied up, it's in a beanie, that kind of thing. Like all that's great, but it also allows you to put lots and lots of interesting talismans on your person. I have a scarf that is like it's like an infinity scarf that has a zipper inside that I have talismans in, and like it just looks like a shawl that I'm using to cover my face, but actually it has, juju inside as well.
Yeah. Any patches on clothing or bags as well? When you iron them on, put some paper
Hmm.
talismans underneath that they're always carried with you, and
Yep.
that they importantly can't be found.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Small charms, fill up your wallet. Debatable whether or not you should bring that to a protest where things are going to pop off in the first place, but
Hmm.
conversation for another podcast.
But I even you can just have a dummy wallet with no cash on
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
that
exactly.
has or like no, or rather no credit cards. You can have cash on, but like not credit cards that have your name on them, with talismans and stuff like that. Like I wouldn't bring your phone,
Mhm.
necessarily to protest, and even if and make sure it's turned off, with the GPS, everything tracking off. But if you have a phone case, if you are gonna bring it, put talismans in the phone case. I always have some in mine, and also or bring a dummy, one with stuff in the phone case too.
Legit. Certain people from the protests that were happening after the murder of George Floyd reporting that different police departments were using like Stingray systems on their phones and stuff to figure out who was there and who was who.
Mhm.
Um, Very dystopian.
Yeah, but so like I said, generally just don't bring it
Yeah.
and make sure
Yeah.
it's off, wherever it is in your home, and have phone numbers written on your hand. So you're able to reference them in case you're able to get access to a phone, or if you're thrown in a precinct, so you can use your call.
Mhm. Legit,
Eh.
yeah.
And remember, you don't have anything to say to anybody. The only words
Mhm.
out of your mouth is "I want a lawyer."
Yeah, legit. I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and I'm invoking my right to counsel.
Uh-huh.
Bottom text.
Yep.
Do not talk to the cops. one one thing from this episode: do not talk to the cops, and I will say it again: do not talk to the cops. Oh man.
You did a Pride episode special last year on Tom Dryberg, which is also when everyone freaked out when you were like, "Yeah, I'm gay." But that was a really awesome one. This I think is basically the bonus Pride episode. It's not coming out in June, but I think that it's spiritually the Pride episode
Mhm.
of the year.
We're recording it in June. It counts.
Yeah, we're recording it in June for sure. Yeah,
Speaking of pride and the necromancy thereof, right?
yeah.
We love a smooth transition.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of overlap in the ancestors of these things. Those who patroned the LGBT rights as they were first incepted in the U.S. were squaring off with the cops. Very famously, Stonewall was a riot. It was not a peaceful protest. um, that really kicked everything off. So, any of those figures, the aforementioned cops, just judges, civil rights attorneys are good ones to have for any sort of court case work powders, or burying oils in those graves for certain periods of time. Getting soldiers, of course, is a general facet of protection. Graves of anarchists are always fun. Graciously was sent some material from the Haymarket, and
Mm-hmm.
use that in a lot of different things. But other things that I like to include are dirts from sites of historic accidents where labor and laborers were killed, especially due to the negligence of their bosses. I will caveat: do not bring that into your house under any circumstances. It is a bit too volatile when conjured correctly,
Mm-hmm.
but it's good to have, good to use for any sort of anti boss juju.
Mm-hmm.
Also, things with dirt from the sites of gross historical abuses committed by the state. Another thing not to bring into your house unless your law keep away is very good, but even then it's iffy. But that's good to go into malefic powders of various kinds, and also to be like in anti-cop and law keep away works to be like, this happened, you will be caught for this if you
Mhm.
mess with me in any way. People will see you as having done this atrocity, no matter how small the infraction. There's also one necromantically that I wanted to include from Hyatt again, where you go to a graveyard and you take the headstone from a grave and you move it to like the foot of a grave.
Mhm.
And on graves in like the 30s in the Carolinas, where you'll see this, there would have been like footboards, these like little tiny stones at the foot of the grave, and you move that to the head. Contemporary graveyards, I would assume you just move the headstone to the foot, and it'll be just fine.
Mm.
Um, but you pronounce the names during this process of anyone that may testify against you, any cops that you know who have caused you problems, your opponents in the court case, maybe the judge, maybe the opposing attorneys. And then you take the dirt from that grave in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and you leave 3 pennies as payment.
Mhm.
You then take that dirt, mix it with salt and red pepper flakes, and you sprinkle it around your property. This is to induce extreme confusion in anyone who would go against you.
Mhm.
Anyone who requires accuracy of judgment in pronouncing things against you will be unable to deliver that.
Mhm.
And of course, we would be remiss to not mention our standard Frightful Howl's procedures of immediately dominate your boss, no matter how much you like them. Immediately dominate your landlord, no matter how much you like them. Make
It's
sure.
it's such a at this point in our Discord, like every time domination magic is noted, it's just like, okay, what's your dom top advice for dom topping the rest of your life? And you're just like, here, and there's always just like a bunch of really good tips.
Yeah. I'm like, piss on some railroad spikes and bury them around your property and then spit in your property's mouth.
Fuck, that's really
Oh,
good. Also
man.
true.
Gotta put a link to yourself in there somehow, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
But yeah, absolutely true. It doesn't matter if they're your friend, doesn't they're not your friend, but it doesn't matter if you like them enough to be friendly with them. Dominate them, make sure they can never on a bad day when they don't get their check in the mail, when they need, food on their table, that they cannot take yours.
Exactly, yeah. If they're going to exploit your labor in exchange for housing, then here we are.
Yeah, and they cannot make sure, under no circumstances are your coworkers going to gossip about you, going to compromise you in any way, shape, or form. Just all of that has to be locked down tight.
Mhm. Exactly. And carrying enough protection in terms of talismans for both aversion of mishaps, if something were to happen, so that you aren't hurt, the ability to go invisible, escape situations as needed, powders even to confuse someone and get them off your trail if you're being followed. Even in my backpack, carrying a tiny little vial where it's a break in case of emergency for extreme confusion of enemies, stuff like that.
I also have a breaking case of emergency vial in
Hmm.
my backpack. That's essentially a confusion plus invisibility powder for me in case I gotta like dip from a place real quick.
Hell yeah, dude.
And also Seventh Pentacle of the Sun to not be imprisoned, such a good one to just have on your person at all
Hmm.
times, like for any reason whatsoever. Like you could just be minding your business, but you never know what might happen near you, right? Um,
Exactly, yeah.
And also the Sixth Pentacle of the Sun for invisibility. For those who want to do them on like gold but can't afford obviously like a gold it's like circle, don't bother with gold plated brass because the plating will like scrape off pretty easily, especially if you wear them and tear them, that kind of thing. Use gold filled brass. Way more durable, way nicer looking too, and it just is beautiful and works really well for solar pentacles.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the ones as well, the Jupiterian one against earthly dangers, lunar as well.
Hmm.
A bit easier to make than gold, but also good to have. Have all of them. You can never
Hmm.
have too many. And
Yeah.
then, of course, we both published in Apotropea. Full title being Apotropea: Magical Approaches to Repel the Law and Its Enforcers. these are a bit more aggressively inclined. How to, of course, curse cops explicitly
Yeah.
and all that fun sort of thing.
Hmm.
And one that I just want to include, if you are more Goetia inclined, because I know a number of our listeners interested in the subject are, shout out to Rom, as much as one can shout out a Goetic demon. Um, but there's a working where you leave crow feathers atop that particular seal under the light of a waning moon, and you asperge them with vinegar infused with vandal roots and a pinch of dirt from a bank that went out of business, or the site of like some other very notable financial crime that led to the ruin of whoever did it. Then you take one of those feathers and put it in the lawn of whatever target, and you light it on fire, praying any litany of curses against them, and expect financial ruin to follow.
Beautiful chef's kiss.
I'm a fan of that one.
Mm.
I like my bird demons.
I was literally just gonna say, I love a corvid.
Love a weird bird.
Mhm.
But yeah, we have name dropped a number of things and techniques in this episode for people to experiment with and to play around with, use it for yourself. But for those who otherwise are not able to get a hold of the herbs or just want that sort of extra oomph of products that have been tested extensively and are known to work. I'm launching some stuff to go along with the episode, which partially a shameless plug. Really, it's the stuff I'm selling pretty much at cost because I want them to be as accessible as possible, and I want to drum up some funds. So a portion of the proceeds are going to go to various bail funds and social organizations that are more local to me, just because I know them and trust their ability to actually send the money to where they need to go. That list is being finalized at the moment, but if people have suggestions when they hear this, reach out
Mhm.
and let me know who needs cash and for what causes.
Yeah. No, plug away. I think it's great that you want to donate some of the proceeds to bail funds and various social orgs. Like that's a great way to give back, especially with selling things specifically for Lost Stay Away or Lock Keep Away, I should say.
Part of the process, right? Part of the
Mm.
ingredient itself is that
Mm.
it's in one way or another, it's doing that work.
And I love that it's stuff that's cheaper than your usual products because you want them to be available, but it's also stuff that you actively use for clients when you're doing your anti-law work.
Yeah, yeah. First and foremost, my court case oil, bottling up and selling it. It's pretty much the same formula with only a few deviations that I use for clients going to court. The recipe's tweaked a little bit just because I have some stuff that's idiosyncratic and requested by my own spirits to go in there, but tested the generic version. It works just as well and it's kind of adapted just to be able to be picked up. All classic law keep away stuff. Spirits will know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, law keep away oil also in there. Very classic hoodoo formulas, just doctored up and given the usual process of extra oomph.
And thoroughly tested through
Mhm.
your own clients.
Yeah, none of the oils that I sell, and same goes for you with talismans and anything else launched at a site, unless they work 3 times, they don't go up for sale.
Mm-hmm.
Thrice tested, if you will.
Yeah, thrice born, thrice tested,
Mhm.
thrice greatest. I love it. But yeah, you've
And
buried these around and enchanted them over long periods of time, and then they've seen their use.
mhm. Yeah, I'm really happy with them. I'm always proud of the oils that I devote the time to, but these especially just because they have bailed some people out of some really shitty situations that are no fault of their own,
Hmm.
and even situations that were their own fault. I don't care. I'm getting paid and I'm helping.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of being the worker for these cases on a magical
Mhm.
basis. This is just like, hey, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help.
Yeah. And the one other thing that I wanted to highlight from the collection is little kits, I suppose. but they will be an Indian head penny and 2 nails. This is a reference to a pretty well documented protection charm that you can put on your house or your flat or wherever it is you're living, where you take one of these pennies, and you nail it to the wall facing outward with the 2 nails. You cross them in the shape of an X over the coin to sort of hold it in place. But all of the nails will be pre-dressed and have been soaked in law keep away oils, buried in places of power, just off the top of my head, courthouse, police station, under a memorial to someone who was the victim of police violence, who actually got the justice for it.
Mhm.
Different graves of different activists, all those fun places, right?
Mhm. I first read of the like Indian head scents formulary. I think it was from Lucky Mojo. I was looking at the website and they mentioned drilling the scents and driving a nail through them or hammering the 2 nails beside the penny to flatten them to meet like an X to like cross out the law.
Mhm.
And I love how simple and effective it is. And yet also, just hit that up with Psalm 91, right? Allah keep away oil, and then you're going above and beyond with the dirts. I
Mhm.
know which things you're referring to. We can't obviously say out loud to not betray some things about you and like where you are, but like, goddamn.
Yeah, they're spicy, shall we say.
Mm, mm,
And yeah, the coins themselves are doctored in a very similar way to what was described, dressed in all manner of different oils, ritually awakened to actually provide that protection, dressed in different herbs to sort of serve as a active warning system that will, be that little voice in your head that's like, hey, I should get out of here right now. Some bad shit's gonna pop off in like 5 minutes.
mm.
So yeah, I'm happy with those. If you want to order a bunch, by all means. There's a very funny example where there's a house that has 1,500 of these coins nailed around its door and buried under the front lawn and up the steps and things like that. And I only wish I were that strapped.
And will there be a bundle as well for all three things?
Yeah, there will be a bundle at a pretty substantially discounted rate because the classic upkeep for the penny working is anointing it with law keep away oil weekly. That is what I recommend out of a matter of tradition. And so I want to be able to hook people up with as much oil as they need.
Hmm.
These 2 oils, by the way, will be in stock on the website perpetually, much like the expedite oils that I have. I can always make more of them. They're made to be fed and expanded and added to and grow with time and with use and with additional packs.
Hmm.
So they'll always be there, always be getting better. And for people even who really need these things, DM me. I'm happy to talk rates. um, and of course, if you're finding yourself actively being victimized by the state on the basis of like race, class, sexuality, gender, DM me. I'm happy to hook people up with these as needed.
Hmm. Beautiful. So proud of you. This is an awesome, first of all, awesome episode, and secondly, amazingly well done in terms of like grounding it in theory and also in praxis, and especially in magic. And I love that you're doing a little mini launch to get some of this stuff right into people's hands, to ensure that they, are able to actually arm themselves with the tools of their own liberation. And I love that it's simple, and I love that you're also giving people plenty of things to do on their own. That's easy peasy. I think the show notes for this episode will be very comprehensive in terms of the references made to not just rituals that Key has mentioned out loud, but also additional ones, just to have as a kind of formulary, and will also be available to people who are not just our patrons. Normally, our show notes are available to patrons only. This one, the show notes will be published with the blog post that has the launch so that folks can immediately copy that down and have it for themselves.
Definitely. I'm really happy with the reading list that we already have put together, and I'm sure
Hmm.
by the time the post goes live, it will be even further annotated and expanded.
Totally, yeah. But in this case, this is an important issue, so we want people to have it in their hands regardless of whether or not they're on our Patreon. And of course, for the folks on Patreon, you're in our Discord server, we can talk all you want about this stuff and make a whole book club out of it and have much more in-depth discussions on a more personal level. But we just want to make sure that this information gets out to as many people as possible. Amazing work, He. Absolutely gorgeous. And I'm so glad that you did this. This is really special. And, who better to lead this than you, given that this is something that you actively do a lot of work for magically for your clients and have had extensive experience protesting in various. I thought the B this time was going to be Black Bloc Key because you have actually really protested with a bunch of these groups. And but I do like the very cheeky one that you put down.
It's quite the funny one, and yeah. More power to the people who did that one.
Mhm. I'm looking at your reading list right now, and the fact that you have like Peter Genderlos, The Failure of Nonviolence, right next to like Hakan Gager's like Riot Medicine, Mark Bray's Antifa, the Anti-Fascist handbook, CIA's Freedom Fighters Manual from 1983, Lundy Bancroft's Why Does He Do That? Inside the Minds of Angry and Controlling Men for people using this to like liberate themselves from like horrible domestic violence situations, not to mention the fact that like most cops are doing that.
Yeah, right.
And then Luciano Tortuga Petronello's Letter to the Indomitable Hearts.
Oh yeah.
Amazing. Subcomandante Marcos, Our Word is Our Weapon, the translated works. Invisible Committees, The Incoming Insurrection, the Office of Strategic Services Sabotage Field Manual, like from 1944. Like, in addition to the entire U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division investigation of the city of Minneapolis and the Minneapolis Police Department regarding the George Floyd case. Amazing. Also, Stanislav Voyotsky's Anarchy Police, Militant Anti-Fascism as Alternative Policing Practice. This is just a fraction of the sources. The rest are like hoodoo books as well, right? But I love it. And then, of course, your extremely abbreviated SCOTUS cases as well. Some podcast shout outs for situations, where whether you live in the US citizen or not, these affect you, right? And for those of us just nearby, it affects us too in many ways, culturally, as well as inspiring our own governments to ever lower lows. Such a king for this reading list. Love it.
Thank you. Always happy to recommend some of these books so I have more people to yell about with.
Do you remember when we went to this one anarchist bookshop and came out with a tote bag that was Thomas Ligotti quote, and it was full of like actually like mostly these books. Like I had specifically Tortuga's Letter to the Inaudible Hearts as well as the Failure of Nonviolence.
Mhm.
And a Max Stirner book too that can go on its own. So we made like a Max Stirner shrine in our Airbnb in New Orleans. It was the bookshop was Sisters in Christ, New Orleans. Really on Magazine Street, really great record shop and bookstore. Super cool people.
Yeah. Such a cool place. The Stirner Shrine is so funny. There's something about the ego in its own draped in Mardi Gras beads.
It was a very fun Mardi Gras.
Oh man.
Speaking of music and anarchist bookstores that are also record stores, the Akashic Records.
Yes. We have a bunch today. Starting it out with Death Grips, No Love.
Great album art.
Yeah, right. Zach Hill's Erectic with No Love, Deep Web written on it in Sharpie.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell. Of course, Villagers of Ioannina City, Caracolia.
Such a good one. Our second track from Villagers of Ioannina City.
Yeah.
Age of
Very-
Aquarius also making it up on our astrology episode.
Mhm. And then the last one for me is an entire album but I will just, for the sake of the playlist, have the one song that lends its name to the album, which is Zealand Ardor's "Wake of a Nation."
Oh, I love Zealand Ardor so much.
Very good live show too, if you ever get the
Hmm.
chance.
Hmm. And my Akasha Records, my first one is Chapter 319 by Clipping.
A
The cover art for that one is your namesake for the episode.
Yeah, yeah.
The burnt husk of the Minneapolis Police Department's third precinct. Clipping is one of my all-time favorites.
Same here.
Hmm. And finally, I have from Antipoina and Social Waste. This is a Greek song as well. Thatane de Thatan de Kapente. Excellent, beautiful song and very harrowing. If you click on the YouTube link for it, there are English subtitles. If you'd like to give it a listen, it's all about the death of Burkin Elvan, who was a 15-year-old boy from Turkey who was hit on the head by a tear gas canister fired by a police officer in Istanbul during the June 2013 anti-government protests. He died shortly after. And this particular event set off riots all over Turkey, Greece, much of the Balkans, and also in North America and many places in Europe, who held demonstrations of solidarity with Berkin Elvan's death. He was born January 5th, 1999. And was only 15 when this happened. So their posters of him can be seen all around these countries to this day. Launched like a number of different controversial court case decisions as well. When the particular officer who fired the canister, 18 police officers testified as subjects, and ultimately the individual was prosecuted for manslaughter. Court case did not issue a warrant for arrest. And ultimately, the gendarmerie issued a report mentioning that actually Berkin Elvan was partly to blame for his own death because he was in the area of protests. Bullshit. He does not mean in any way that you are culpable for your own death by participating freely in a protest. Eventually, Dolgali was sentenced to 16 years and 8 months in prison, but the court abstained from ordering his arrest. So a classic case of the state, the judiciary, and the police force coming together to completely excuse the unlawful death of a minor who just happened to be protesting and exercising his right to do so. So beautiful song, absolutely phenomenal work. I love Social Waste. They're an excellent group out of Greece, and yeah, beautiful, beautiful one.
Thank you for that track, and to everyone out there,
Mhm.
stay strong, keep fighting.
Indeed, indeed. And in the spirit of staying strong and keeping fighting, our license set apart is from Jamie Alexander's Jesus Malverde, a Guide to the Underworld by Hadean Press, and it is a prayer to the Angel of the Poor himself. Blessed bandit who died a martyr's death, you who gave to the poor, you who help the needy, kind Jesus Malverde, Angel of the Poor, you who defend from poverty, you who provides, provide for me in this my hour of need. May I always have food on my table and food in my belly. Let me earn my keep. Help me to help those less fortunate than I. Good Jesus Malverde, keep me out of harm's way. Help me be charitable. Please, Jesus Malverde, kindly hear this prayer and grant for me this request. Angel of the poor, pray for me. Generous bandit, pray for me. Prince of thieves, pray for me. Charitable saint, pray for me.
The state is listening and they know we're recording.
Don't even try it, Fed boy.